times like this, we up.
Welcome to the State of Hockey podcast, featuring Justin Jelnick and Joe Hayford. Let's talk hockey.
Welcome to the State of Hockey podcast, episode 8, edition for Tuesday, May 5th. It is day 21 of the greatest tournament in all of sports. I am Justin Jelnick, along here with my co-host Joe Hayford. Joe, how are you doing?
Recovering.
This was not how we wanted it to go.
No, not at all.
At all. Oh, yeah. 0-2 coming home and just plain looking bad doing it every step of the way.
Yeah, I mean, from start to finish, I mean, there's some bright points, but there's more dead spots than bright points.
I would have to agree. So, but I suppose we should go ahead and review the week that was. The Wild opened their second round playoff series at the United Center in Chicago on Friday evening with Game 1. The Wild fell behind 3-0 right away in this one, but managed to rally back to tie it before giving up what would go on to be the game winner at the end of the second. They ended up losing this one 4-3. Joe, what do you think about this one?
Well, I was hoping this was just going to be one of those, just a bad game for Ryan Suter. Unfortunately, it didn't turn out that way. But the moral of the story here with this game is defense wins you championships, and if your defense isn't up to snuff, you can rally back from a 3-goal deficit and have a defensive lapse, and there you are.
I would. Whoa! Hold on a second. My computer just did something weird. Anyway, yeah, I would have to agree. The speed of Chicago really has proven problematic to the Wild's defense so far. And on top of it, I think the Chicago's defense and goaltending has been much better than it was in the last series. And this spells this could be a really good Chicago team. And this could, unfortunately, be a quick series if Minnesota doesn't find an answer tonight.
Yeah, and they just didn't seem to, they show up for about, 10 minutes a game. We saw this in the middle of the season. We saw it towards the later half of the season when they played teams like the Winnipeg Jets. They just don't show up to play the game that night, and eventually they kind of find their stride and they lose it again. We can't keep doing that, especially against the Blackhawks. And I got to say, I have to change my pick here on this. I don't think the Wild have enough. I mean, like I said, if we give away one bad game to the Blackhawks, and we've given them 2 now. I think it's over, Sally.
I would have to agree there. So it's obviously too late to change picks, otherwise it defeats the purpose of picks. But I tell you, unless they come back winning games 3 and 4, I don't believe there's that much reason for optimism. I mean, Suter got roasted on that first goal from Saad, and it just seems like every time there's a mistake, nobody knows how to recover right now on the Wild. There's guys missed as soon as the puck's turned over, and honestly, I mean, it was valiant that they fought back and to tie it at 3, but Chicago could have had many more goals than the 4 they put up on Friday.
Let's be honest, 3 guys fought back in that game. 3 guys, and that's it.
Yeah.
That's a Parlinville line.
Yeah.
The rest of the team was flat.
Yeah. And they're getting outworked. I mean, just give Chicago credit. I said they had to step up their game to play with the Wild, and not only have they done that, the Wild have clearly taken a step back, and it's just a disaster right now.
Yeah, and it's not even fun to watch. I mean, I've seen games that are fun to watch. I mean, the end of the Blackhawks game is pretty fun to watch. Game 1, I'm sorry. It was pretty fun to watch because it was a close game, but really fundamentally, they're not playing good hockey.
I mean, and to tell you the truth, I've only reviewed the highlights from Game 1. I missed the first 2 periods because I went to Penn and Teller at Mystic Lake, and by all accounts, that was a much better show than the first period. So,
yeah, the first period was pretty awful.
Yeah, but the Zuckerprezi and Granlund were your goal scorers in that game, and they all went to the net and got opportunities. And And really, I thought the Wild carried the better of the play in the third that I did watch, but just couldn't get the tying goal. I mean, Palmer had a tough miss on an open net, but couldn't get the puck cleanly. It was rolling on him.
Grandma had the same problem on the other side of the net too.
Yeah. So, I mean, they had chances to tie it. Chicago had chances to get many more goals. So, but yeah, so 4-3 result puts them down 1-0 after Friday, and then game 2, Minnesota played a much tighter game for about halfway through, and they got some good scoring chances early, but then the disaster hit on their power play.
Yeah, that's the thing. If you give this Chicago team, which I do not like, but I definitely respect, if you give them anything less than 100% for 60 minutes, they will destroy you.
Yeah.
And it's been proven both games.
Yeah, but I mean, I guess my feeling was that just wasn't the case with how Chicago was playing in the last round. I mean, they were making mistakes like crazy, and they haven't in this series, and they've taken advantage of Wild mistakes. And I got to tell you, I mean, Suter took a beating for that turnover, but it was 2 guys against 1 on the board, and Koivu was kind of caught in a tough spot there. He had to choose either between supporting Suter or staying in the middle of the ice, and he chose to support Suter, and once the puck came out, that led to the wide open chance.
But that's one of those things where Suter, instead of running up to play the puck, he should have backed off and played defense instead of trying to dump it in and play offense.
Yeah.
He
usually plays such a conservative game too, and
he's just
trying to press because he knows that he's not playing well.
Yeah, I mean that might be some of it. As we all know, Suter, my favorite player on the Wild, and yeah, I love the guy now. I always will. He wears green and red, but the bottom line is he had a horrible first 2 games of the series, like Nate Prosser horrible start to the series.
Yeah, no, I would have to agree. And I kind of was musing this the other night, last night on Twitter about I just gotta believe Suter's playing a little slow. I gotta believe he's playing through something and has been for a good while.
Yeah, but it's not even about being slow. I mean, I've seen that in the past, but he's making a lot of mental mistakes.
Mm-hmm.
Like just that play I was telling you about there. I mean, coming up and pinching like that. Suter doesn't pinch ever.
No.
If he pinches, it's on the forecheck, getting down,
right.
Getting down low in the zone.
And usually on a power play, you're generally safe to pinch, but
well, yeah, especially he's the dominant defenseman. He's the one that's supposed to hold back.
Right. And Chicago is the team that'll make you pay for those. The second goal of the period that King got, he got behind Suter. He was cherry picking on that one, and a great pass got all the way through the neutral zone. But Suter was probably up when he shouldn't have been on that one too.
You gotta be the last man back on the ice.
Mm-hmm.
Especially when you got Kane on the ice.
Yeah, I mean Chicago's playing like beer league right now, and you can get away with cherry picking like that. It's just ridiculous.
People can make hay of the bad calls and whatever else it is, but it comes down to if Vanek hadn't been called for that penalty, would we still have won that game? No, we wouldn't have.
Yeah, we're talking about that one at the end of the first. I mean, the Wild had just sustained some pressure, and then Vanek was forced into the net, called on an interference, which was ridiculous. And the Wild, the penalty killing has been their strength at least, and that isn't what's been killing them in this series. It's just the mental mistakes and even strength, the fact that power play is regressing, and it's just spelled doom in the first 2 games.
Yeah, I mean, I honestly expect them to come out with a better showing tomorrow night.
Almost by default, to be frank, but
well, yeah, but I mean,
they almost can't play worse than they played last night.
Let's remember, this is the first time that Devin Dubnyk has lost 2 games in a row in a Wild sweater.
That's true, and it's tough to blame him for much. I guess the game winner on Friday was soft, but otherwise, I mean, he's facing odd man rushes like crazy, and Chicago's converting.
Yeah, that 2-0. He made the save.
Yes, he did.
He made the save.
He saved as many as he's given up on those, high percentage spots when Chicago's just counterattacking like crazy. I mean, he's not going to get them all. I think Wild, unfortunately, is getting as many as he has.
Yeah, I just think he's not getting any help from his defense, and kudos to him for not just basically giving up.
Yeah. Dumba gave a little hope to the Wild at the start of the third in Game 2 in a goal that was very soft, which is what you expect from Crawford. I mean, Crawford's been better than the last round, but he's still not good. He's giving rebounds up like crazy. Nobody's just sniping corners, and nobody's taking advantage, and his defense is really playing much better for him.
Yeah, that's the biggest thing. If you look back at those games, the one thing I saw was the defense playing offense and the offense playing defense. No one's crashing the net. The forwards are all too scared, and they're getting back in the zone, or they're out on the edges of the boards. No one's crashing the net like we used to, other than that Parisi, Granlund, Pominville line.
Absolutely agree with you there. So hopefully more lines get this figured out tomorrow, and we'll just see what happens. I'll just put the code on it. It was a terrible change that led to the third goal in Game 2, and then empty net, of course. And the Wild go on to lose that one 4-1. And they're down 2-0 coming back to St. Paul for a game that will drop tonight after this podcast drops.
For the third straight year.
Yeah. So normally we do a 3-star segment, and in 8 episodes, this is by far the hardest one we've done, and it's the shortest one we're going to do. But I do have our 3 stars for the week.
He scores!
You want stars?
You believe in miracles? Yes!
We got stars.
And the Wild are a Dubnyk save away from a shootout win.
State of Hockey's 3 stars of the week.
Save Dubnyk! And the Wild win it in the shootout!
So I went with Fontaine for number 3. I know he only played 1 game, but he was the team leader in Corsi in all situations and had nothing to do with Game 2. So I thought that was reasonable. I thought he's played well in all the games he's played in so far, and I thought absent a lot of other obvious choices, I thought he was a deserving pick for a 3rd star this week.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, when you're a leader on a team in anything, especially after the week we've had, this is kind of starting to remind me of picking 3 stars back when we had Kemper in net.
Yeah. Yeah, that's true. Thankfully, we didn't have to do that because our podcast only exists in the post-Dubnyk era.
Yes.
So I went with Fontaine number 3. I got Zach Parise at number 2, 1-1-2 for him in the 2 games, and he had a lot of grade A chances last night in Game 2, and I of most players, you could pick their games apart. Parise actually still did a lot of things right, despite how the game went.
Yeah, and that's always true of Parise. I mean, you see him make a bad play here and there, but it never spirals. It never gets out of control. It never becomes a bad game or a bad 2 games. So I'm not too surprised there. He's been a stellar player in the league for a very long time, and we're lucky to have him.
Number 1 star this week is my favorite player, of course, Matthew Dumba. He had the 1 goal last night, which obviously was as much a product of Crawford as it was of him shooting. But he's also 3rd on the team in Corsi, and he's been dealing with negative zone starts. So Yo's not sheltering him as much as he might have been when he was first called up. And he's rising the challenge for the most part. I mean, yeah, he still deals with a couple turnovers, but hey, everybody's fallen prey to that in Sunday's game.
Yeah, this is kind of a best of the worst 3 stars.
Really is. I mean, to me, Parise and Dumba were pretty obvious choices, and I thought Fontaine put up decent numbers in Game 1, and he was fine. I didn't list any honorable mentions, but I think you probably want to name Granlund and Pominville as well.
Yeah, and the other thing, too, is, not on the score sheet, it didn't really show up, but the effort and hustle I saw from Eric Hollow was pretty good coming back.
Yeah. I had a good feeling about him getting back in the lineup, and unfortunately didn't translate into any goals, which the Wild are desperately needed last night. But I'm comfortable that he's back. We just need to hope that the Wild just smarten up in general to turn the series around.
Yeah, they definitely they can't take anything. The only way they win the series is not taking any time off. Period. You play all 60 minutes. You play all 60 minutes like they're the last 2 minutes of the game.
Yeah, just like Jack Lemaire used to say, my Twitter avatar's namesake. So yeah, but so one more time, we got Fontaine 3, Parisi 2, and Matt Dumba 1. So that's your 3 stars of the week. So I got a couple listener tweets. I basically asked everybody who wanted to complain last night to reply to a tweet. I got a couple I wanted to read. So I got one from @Tony. So, of course, from Hockey Wilderness, he told me that I hate hockey a lot. And I'll tell you, those are the games that make you say those things, aren't they?
Yeah, I don't think I'd ever go that far, but I
know
understand the frustration, and
he doesn't mean it for sure. I mean, if you follow him, you know he loves the game, but sometimes there are games that just make you mad. @Uncanny_Megan, that's Megan Canny, friend of the show, which we'll call her. She tweeted at me that the announcers are as annoying as Ott, which is a clear suck-up tweet because of my problems with Ott, but I'll take it. So, yeah, I don't know. I don't like to pick on the announcers too much, though. I mean, I love Doc Emmerich. He was really the first national hockey voice I heard back when NHL on Fox was a thing. And I can't believe that was about 20 years ago. I mean, and I know people are making a big deal of this Granlund thing, and it's way out of proportion for my opinion.
I don't agree. These guys make plenty of money, and they have one job, and that's to announce a game. You'd think they could take 15, 20 minutes to study the names and pronunciations.
There's actually a case that, that Doc Emmerich is actually pronouncing it, correctly in European terms. I know Russo had a post on that this week, and I know State of Hockey News had a post on that a couple weeks ago. But who knows? Who knows who's getting it right or wrong?
Yeah, it's just I don't know.
Well,
NBC Sports is so far hanging off the jockstrap of the Chicago Blackhawks that it gets painful to listen to.
But that said, I mean, the Wild aren't giving them any reason to say anything else right now. I mean,
no.
But yeah, I get it that Eddie Olczyk kind of he works Blackhawks TV through the whole year, and he's predisposed to do that.
Yeah, it gets pretty bad.
So, but I don't mind him either too much. But yeah, I get it. The Blackhawk kissing is annoying, but Wild should change the narrative if they don't like it. So that's what I think. So, yeah. But yeah. So thank you for your listener tweets, and as always, use hashtag SOTSOPod, SOTSOHpod, or you can always reply to Joe or I directly on Twitter. So I'll give him one extra time this week. I'm @SOTSOHockeyJJ, and Joe is @SOTSOHockeyJoe. So that's so those were our listener tweets. You want to preview our next week?
Yeah. I mean, I guess we can go right into it. Tuesday's game.
What needs to change?
Defense needs to change. You play defense for 55 minutes. All it takes is that one goal in that last 5 minutes, and I don't think there's a better team in hockey in the last 5 minutes of the game than we are.
Yeah. I mean, this is kind of what I'm seeing after having reviewed all the goals, is that the defense just seems to not know what to do when they turn the puck over all of a sudden. And Chicago's got guys crushing the net and getting wide open, and that's what's leading to all their chances. Aside from that, I mean, the first half hour of the game last night I thought was pretty solid. They did a good job keeping players away from Dubnyk, not surrendering any grade A chances whatsoever. It's the turnovers that have been killing them.
Well, what bothers me is it seems like there's a complete game plan change. From playing a solid, fundamentally defensive game, we've gone to a team that's going to try and outscore the Blackhawks and just play, run and gun style hockey. like the Oilers playing Tampa Bay.
That was a very savvy reference there, Joe, of the run and shoot offense.
Yeah.
Oh, I think Andy was making a football joke, which is awesome.
Yeah, exactly.
Well done.
But it's not too much different. I mean, you're not going to outscore the Chicago Blackhawks. They just have too much talent on that team.
They need to win the game, so they score 3 big goals. I mean, that's the bottom line. If they were a little tighter on Friday, out the gate, this could be tied going back to Minnesota, and we'd be in much better shape.
Yeah, this would be a much happier podcast for sure. But like I said, I mean, we got to get back to our fundamental defensive game. The goals will come. You know, obviously, we're not losing these games. You know, 1-0.
Mm-hmm.
We're getting blown out, and you know that game, the score was closer than it actually was.
Yeah.
Game 1, we got blown out in that game.
Yes, I would agree. Well, I mean, certainly in the first period. From the second on, and even in the third, I thought the Wild did a pretty good job of limiting opposing chances. But game 2, clearly, I mean, as soon as they gave up the first goal, they just lost their mind every time they turned the puck over, and Chicago just kept it rolling.
And that's the thing; they're forcing their defense into offensive plays, which is creating the turnovers, and then they're out of position to play defense because they're rushing up on plays. It's a complete game plan change from what we saw when they played Chicago earlier this year and beat them twice, and from when we saw them play the Blues. I just don't understand what. I mean, that's got to be a little bit on Mike Yeo.
Yeah, and I'll tell you, I thought it was a little unusual. I saw Suter and Dumba skating together for a while. I mean, Yeo clearly tinkered with the whole lineup last night, or for whatever that did. But it's just they got to be smarter when they turn it over. They got to know who's where and not make it worse.
Yeah, they definitely are not playing with very good chemistry. It almost seems that Yeo is a little panicky. You know, we lost game 1, and he decided to revamp the entire team philosophy. Hopefully, he comes back to earth. And you know, I honestly have a lot of faith in Yeo.
I don't really know how much I would put on Yeo here. I mean, this looks like it's just the players panicking.
Yeah, but the players, there's got to be a game plan for a defenseman to step up into plays, because that's not something that Suter does on his own. Never.
Yeah.
I mean, I've always wished that Suter would do that more, but he doesn't do that. And that's, as much as I'd want him to do that, this is what happens when defensemen do that. That's why Suter's one of the best.
Yeah. So, well, I guess defense is going to be the key. And to me, unless the Wild can take both at home, I don't think there's going to be much reason to be optimistic about this series coming Minnesota's way. They're in a position where they have to win 4 games out of 5.
Yeah, and honestly, I wouldn't be surprised to see us take both at home.
If they do, we'll have a much happier podcast next week.
We'll have a much happier podcast next week, but I still don't believe that we're going to take the series anymore. I just think that the Wild have spoiled a game. Either one of those games were winnable. You know, they just played fundamental defense and stayed in it.
Well, let's hope they have a better game plan in them. If there's any reason to be optimistic, is we saw much better play from them in the first round. It's there if they can just get their minds to it.
Yeah, I agree.
That's it. Are you attending either of Game 3 or 4?
I am attending Game 4, although if my tickets don't sell, I might be attending Game 3 as well.
Yeah. Oh, I should make mention. I saw I was on StubHub earlier today, and it just seems like the bottom has fallen out of the aftermarket.
Yeah, I think that if we win on Tuesday, the prices will go back up.
Yeah. I mean, because I remember when I looked for a series start, there wasn't a seat to be had for under like $220, and now there's plenty under $170. So
yeah,
just for starting upper level prices. So I do like to watch the aftermarket, though. I like to take advantage when I can, but I think I'll be enjoying the rest of the playoffs from home or out and about if we do another event. The Excel Energy Center Twitter account was kind of vague about this. They said no viewing parties for Game 1 or 2, but there might be one in the future. And I kind of wonder if that meant Game 5, especially if NBC ends up taking it.
Yeah, that would be a very nice thing to have.
We'll see if that comes into being. I'll probably go Twitter nuts if it does. So, but yeah, so Game 3 is Tuesday, which is the day this drops. Game 4 is Thursday, and Game 5 is Saturday, and then Game 6 would be Monday Monday the 11th if it becomes necessary.
And the insanity of the NHL playoff schedule ensues with a 7 o'clock game on Tuesday.
Yep.
And then 8:30 game on Thursday.
Yeah. It's kind of odd they're in this mode where it's like 1 game, 3 games because they only did Rangers Capitals on Saturday because Kentucky Derby and golf and all the other things NBC had going on this weekend.
Yeah, how about the Capitals?
Yeah, that was we should probably talk a little about that. Did you watch Game 1?
I did.
Yeah, that was quite the ending with the winner with 2 seconds left following the controversial hit in the corner. Do you think there should have been a penalty on that?
Looking back at it, I didn't see a penalty there. One could have been called by the letter of the law, but if you watch that game, they weren't calling stuff like that. I don't think it was intentionally meant to hurt someone or it was in clear violation of the rules. It was a good hockey play that he took his chances.
I could go either way. The hit kind of went in high to me. So it's the kind of hit that I'd like to see DPS get harder on, but by the standards they've been going by, it's probably not a suspension. And I can see where, it probably should have been a penalty in my view, but many of those get missed in any game, especially, as loose as the playoffs seem to be called this year. Yeah,
absolutely. And then, you got the Canadians getting smoked at home.
Well, this will be the happiest I get the podcast this week. I mean, I did pick Montreal to advance, but I'm certainly no fan of Les Habitants. So
hockey does not belong in states or cities that are too warm to play it.
I hate that argument, too, because Tampa's a relatively successful market. There have been certain southern markets that have been disasters.
Relatively successful. They don't deserve any sports franchises for what they did to the Tampa Bay Rays. The team made it to the World Series and they couldn't sell out a game.
That's true, but Florida did it worse.
Well, yeah. Florida doesn't deserve any sports teams other than the Heat.
Yeah. But Tampa's well attended. The Lightning are anyway. So I could see where the Panthers are in trouble at some point. I definitely think the Coyotes are in more trouble than we're led to believe. But, who knows what's going to go on there. I'm kind of skeptical about this Las Vegas talk, to be honest. But
I'm skeptical. Yeah, I'm with you on that because I see 3 teams, possibly 4, that could relocate, and it would be better for the NHL than it is currently.
I hate to admit, but they've actually made a pretty good run in Dallas. I mean, obviously it would have been better if the team could have stayed in Minnesota and should have stayed in Minnesota, but they dealt with the bankruptcy thing, but they've been pretty well attended, especially when they're winning, and they've had success too, so I don't begrudge that one. Nashville, I don't have a problem with the market being there. I just have a problem with how their GM and consequently their fans conduct themselves toward Mr. Suter.
Yeah. Agreed.
Carolina's done well. I know, everybody that loves ESPN wishes they were still in their backyard.
Yeah.
And Hartford hasn't even been that great of an AHL market, to be blunt. I mean, I'm sure part of that is what happened in St. Paul, too, when the Moose were a thing.
Yeah, I mean, there's 3 cities that I see. Hartford, honestly, Hartford needs a team back because the Whalers are like the greatest thing ever.
I don't know. Maybe I personally think they might be better just looked on fondly in the past than actually brought back.
Yeah, I can see that. I don't see expansion being the answer here.
No.
I see relocations, Arizona, Florida, and Carolina.
Yeah. Yeah, those would be the teams I would be most worried about. Even Carolina, the fans will be there. The big thing with Carolina is that they're the only pro team in the Raleigh market, so they have that going for them, which is nice. So
It's true, but they still only get about 9,000 fans a night.
no, they do much better than that.
I want to look that up pretty quick here.
I am going to.
When we were there was only 9,000 fans.
You actually been?
No, I'm saying when the Wild.
Oh, this year when the Wild were there?
Yeah. It's pretty bad.
Yeah. I mean, I think this year's been pretty bad, but on the whole, I mean, especially when they were there. Let's see, 2014, 15.
I would take a franchise.
Oh, you're right. Carolina's second bottom. They're at 13. They're behind Arizona and ahead of Florida.
Yeah,
So
see?
they've really taken a tumble. So in terms of percentage, they're second from the bottom. So well, maybe they are going to be. But I don't like this notion that southern cities don't deserve hockey teams. I just find that a little harsh. I guess I mean, Tampa's 9th in attendance for the record, by the way, 98% capacity.
I say that because states like Wisconsin, and as much as we hate Wisconsin, of course, but they would love to have a hockey team, and I 100% think that they would, happily attend the games and get more into hockey.
There's a long story about how that went down in Milwaukee, and the team, the principals were from the Allen Bradley Group, which is a famous industrial family out there. They did not like the NHL's business model in the early 80s and ended up doing an AHL team, which is now the present Milwaukee Admirals. And remember, Milwaukee's not that big a market. It's probably about half the size of the Twin Cities market. I don't think they can support 3 major teams, and the Bucks and Brewers really haven't been that well attended of late. But Milwaukee's been a strong minor league market. So I think if the Bucks ever leave, that would be kind of the opening to get the NHL in Milwaukee. Much like what's going on in Seattle, I think that's an expansion that needs to happen.
I agree.
So,
I don't think it needs to be an expansion, though. I think the Panthers need to go there, or the Coyotes.
that could happen, or maybe they'll get the expansion in and then collect the big fee if there's ever an actual real live arena in Quebec City someday.
Yeah.
So, well, we kind of meandered off a playoff deal, but my point is that, yeah, there are some southern markets that have been bad, and most of them were the ones that were established in the Bettman era, but there are some that have worked out fairly well. But for the record, Tampa and Ottawa were established before Bettman became commissioner. Just saying. So,
Hey, I like Ottawa.
yeah. So, because the Tampa was the expansion team last year, the North Stars, because they got stuck in the North division before the team aligned it. Which is my fun fact. So, but yeah. So
This is what happens when the Wild sucks so bad we can't talk about them.
Yeah. Oh no. I mean, this would have been a fine summer topic.
Who can be?
But we shouldn't give up yet. But obviously, there's not a lot to be happy about, and I don't want to spin it.
No, and it's not going to discourage me from loving and watching the games and loving the Wild, but it's got to change. I mean, we can't just lay on our backs like that and take it.
I think part of the problem is that, other than Parisi, and Pominville used to be this guy, there aren't players on the team that pick corners when they get good shots. They can throw pucks at the goaltenders all they want, but they don't have the killer snipes that, the Canes and the Taves of the world have.
No, they don't, and we that was what apparently we got Vanek for, which I never thought he was that guy either.
No.
We need a guy like that.
Still the most protected player on the roster if you look at Zone Starts on WarrenIce.com. So,
yeah, well, we know my thoughts on Vanek, and they just keep getting...
I mean, a lot of the tweets out, he played his best game ever in Game 1 and just wasn't rewarded for it, but I think he was among the many guilty parties in Game 2.
See, I don't think he played as good a game as everyone thinks he did, and I hate to rain on that parade, but he looked better than he normally does because everyone else looks so bad.
Right.
That was more about everyone playing down to his level rather than him playing up to theirs.
Oh, that's a sad assessment. But I won't say an inaccurate one.
Sad but true, unfortunately. And
yeah. But yeah, Tampa just crushing Montreal.
Yeah, and every facet of the game, it's like
They got a break in game one. I mean, I looked back. Well, they got a bad break in game one that the first goal was called back in overtime on an interference, which was probably the right call. But I always question referees in Montreal. But then, I'd like to rant on that. But then they got the winner on a play that was offside, and I guess that kind of brings up. Do you want to see the NHL go down the road of expanding replay?
Not at all. I'd rather see it like this. And if it were the Wild, I'd be saying the same thing. It was the Wild last year.
Yes, that's true.
It was. McKinnon came in offsides about 2.5 feet offsides.
I never fret about close offsides. I figure half dozen of those are missed every game. And, the linesmen do their best to speed this game happens. It's never going to be perfect.
That's the beauty of the NHL, is that it's fast. It happens. It moves.
And the other part of this is the goal was scored about, 20 seconds of game time after actual play. Hockey's not football where you can just roll a play back if there's a penalty on it. I mean, that's constant. It's constant motion. I mean, does Montreal? I mean, if how long does that standard go if you expand replay? Do you let Tampa keep the puck in the zone a minute, score a goal, and then say, "Oh no, it came in offside. We have to roll it all back"?
Well, yeah, and that's kind of how that. If they go and there's a no goal called on the ice, and they go back and review it, and it ends up being a goal. I don't even think that should happen.
I like replay pretty much the way it is. I wish they would call crease stuff again, because they should have, back in Buffalo and Dallas game, but they don't. And I could see where could look at interference a little more, but really you can't. I'm not for expanding replay to anything beyond what happens in a couple seconds before the net. I mean, rolling back to a missed offside, I think is an outrageous notion.
I agree.
So, okay, well that's a good time. So, but yeah, a little controversy came up yesterday too. Apparently, I had my nose. Oh yeah, Brandon Prust of the Habs accused Watson of calling a referee, Brad Watson, calling him a rather nasty name among the names George Carlin is famous for listing.
That's a shocker. Brett, really? Brian Watson of all people?
Brad Watson, yeah. I mean, I'm no fan of Watson as a referee.
No, every time he referees, he's just absolutely awful. He's the one that we had when Ballard got destroyed.
Yeah. I had forgotten about that. Wow. Yeah. I mean, I knew he was among the many bad ones in the Colorado series last year. If we haven't beaten that dead horse yet,
No,
but yeah,
that horse will never die.
Yeah, but so Press got kicked out of the game for arguing a call with him, and it's kind of odd because I've played the game. I know not on a high level, but I know referees take a ton of abuse. I'm sure in the pros, referees have been called far worse or many more things than what Watson is being accused of here. And I think it's just dumb for Press to complain.
Yeah, I think it makes him look
at
like
least publicly,
the little baby he is.
You need to back channel this stuff because there's going to be no stripes that have mercy on him. I mean, if this is what it takes to turn the stripes against Montreal, I'm kind of in favor of it. So,
if it were, racist or, in any way offensive by grouping a bunch of people together, I might have an issue with it. But if it's just,
Oh, I see what you're saying. Yeah.
If it's just,
if Watson said something,
you're an idiot or something,
a
lot less clean than that, but along those same lines, I don't have a problem with that.
But if he had said something racially charged or whatnot, that's different for you.
Absolutely, yeah. If it were PK Subban and the Boston fans came back to party,
I don't think PK Subban's got to worry about the referees. They love him. So
he pays their paychecks. He's a poster boy.
Yes, he is. But it's just interesting to me. But yeah, we'll see what happens. I mean, at worst, he's going to get fined for defaming the referees. If he doesn't get fined, that's going to be a story. I think the NHL almost has to do something just because they stick up for the referees so knee-jerk.
And in this case, I agree with it. They absolutely should. They should fine him. On the other hand, I do believe, and we can talk about this in the offseason, but the referee situation in the NHL needs to be adjusted.
I agree.
For blatant non-calls, for blown, whatever you want to call it, there has to be justification. There has to be consequences for these referees.
I agree. Or at least it would help if we could have an understanding of what their view of a play was. That at least calms down a lot of the thought.
Yeah, a statement. Whatever. When that's where, a little fine comes in, a $500 fine per missed call.
Yeah.
Per blatant missed call. And a statement.
We'll see, but they'll never do any of that publicly, you understand. So.
And that's why they should do that publicly, so that stats can be accumulated in this situation.
That's part of why I like to follow this Scouting the Refs, at Scouting the Refs on Twitter. It's a pretty good site that you get and they track stats. You get a feel for who the tighter refs are, who the looser refs are, who's a homer, and so forth. So that's a good follow. I retweet them a lot, but it's at Scouting the Refs. So give that a look if you want the dope on the stripes. And I think more sites like that kind of will force the NHL's hand into being a little more open about these things than they are now.
Yeah, and in these days, we are definitely a lot more open, and there's a lot more things that people track.
Yeah.
So.
Absolutely, anybody can start tracking stuff, and the hockey blogosphere in general is really good at it. I mean, the whole advanced stats movement is pretty organic, even though the NHL still doesn't want to pretend it exists. I mean, sites like Cap Geek and what the tragedy surrounding that and whatnot. It's hockey fans do take advantage of the modern tools of the internet.
Yes, as we are doing currently.
That is true. So, even though we're still in the midst of the saddest podcast ever.
Yes.
But yeah, well, the Rangers got their revenge though on Saturday and played a very solid game. But I mean, still the story was that Ovechkin goal from one knee, picking the top corner. That's insane.
Yeah, how awesome is that guy?
I love Ovechkin. I mean, sometimes he crosses that dirty line, Well,
that's kind of what I like about him. He's a little dirty.
He's a little edgy. So
I like chippy players.
Yeah, that's all right. But yeah, I mean, I thought that was an exciting game to watch. I haven't seen too much of Anaheim and Calgary because these games have gotten out of hand quick enough for me to lose interest. And yeah, your Calgary pick not looking so good so far.
No, not at all.
So,
but well, who knows? Maybe Anaheim goes undefeated in the playoffs.
Yeah. So, but I guess we've touched on all the series at least. Yeah, that would be a first if they go unbeaten. So, just to kind of review my picks from the beginning of my bracket, I do have Anaheim, Minnesota, and I do have Montreal and New York. And after going 8 for 8, I'm in trouble in 2 series and arguably 3, with the Rangers only getting a split, and the Rangers being my Cup champion.
Yeah, that could really mess you up.
Boy, my $11.40 might not be so safe if a lot of things go wrong here. Might have to pay up.
Yeah.
So, well, we'll see what happens. That's why I say a lot. Because, I mean, hockey is a weird sport. There's only so much strategy you can discuss. I mean, the beauty of the game to me is just comes down to whether you go out and do it or not. It's hard to outthink opponents. Everybody plays smart except for the Wild in the first 2 games of this series. You just have to go out and execute, and that has more impact on winning than any measure of game planning, in my opinion.
Yeah, I mean, a lot to be said about effort.
I mean, football and baseball are very strategy-driven sports, and basketball as well, more so than hockey, where it's just so much flow you can't draw up. You can only draw up so much. You have to, and be successful, you have to execute.
Yep, 100% agree.
So, alrighty. Well, you got anything else for us this week, Joe?
No, I'm going to try and recover, and today will be a better day. I just know it.
Well, have fun at whatever games you go to. I'll be watching from the comforts of home, and I'll be on live tweeting as much as I can. It's once again, I am at SOTSO Hockey JJ, and Joe is at SOTSO Hockey Joe. Our producer is Andy Carlson at Andy Carlson Show. On Purple for the Win this week, he's got a new podcast for if you want to learn about all the awesome players the Vikings drafted. That'll be on my list to check out tomorrow. And so that's purplefgw.com. For Andy's Purple for the Win podcast, and also Andy Must Die podcast, although Die's on vacation. So, Andy, I don't know if she's going to be in this week or not.
I have Nickerson filling in.
Nickerson! I like Uncle Nick. So, that's at Nickerson on Twitter as well. So, I'll be looking forward to that as well. So, I guess that's all for this week. Thank you for listening. I hope we didn't bum you out too much. Normally, we want to psych you up for the big games, but we'll just wait and see if the Wild can do that for us in games 3 and 4. So I guess that's it for the show. This is Justin Jelnick for my co-host Joe Hayford. Thanks for listening, and we'll be back next week.
Thanks for listening to the State of the Hockey podcast. The music was created and produced by Deeb. To hear more of his tracks, visit soundcloud.com/Deeb.